Hi, everybody. Mitch Tannenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to talk about CMMC timelines on what we think is going to happen. Still a little bit up in the air. The final rule for Title 32, which is the CMMC process, has been published. It goes into effect on December 16th. At that point, the CMMC could, in theory, be placed in an RFP. What's missing is the Title 48 part, which is the contract language, general contract language, and that won't happen until probably late spring, early summer. But even given that, what does the timeline look like? And the answer is in theory, what they're saying is the first year is all going to be self-assessment. In part, that's to get people used to it. In part, that's because there aren't a lot of assessors. In part, because it's going to take people a while to actually get their assessments done. But still, you're certifying that you are compliant. And the challenge, of course, is that now the rules are that only some things are programmable, and I'll talk about that separately in a different video. But some things are programmable, very few things, in fact. And in order to be quote compliant, you need to have at least a score of 80%, which is a score of 88. So, but what's the sort of background information here? You do not need to be CMMC certified, even if the contract requires CMMC certification, to bid on something. So let's talk about that first, right? Anybody can bid on a RFP. If the RFP says that CMMC certification or CMMC compliance is required, you can still bid on it if you're not. But here's the problem. What's the timeline between when the bid goes in and when the award comes out? Because if the contract requires CMMC, then you cannot be awarded the contract if you are not, whatever it says, self-certified or third-party certified. So that's the kicker, right? Let's say there's a 3-month window between when you submit the bid and when the bid gets awarded. Well, if you're not certified and the award requires you to be certified, then you're not going to do that in 3 months. It's just not 6 months. It's not going to happen. 9 months is probably unlikely if you haven't started. So just think about that. Second, your prime may require you to be certified, even if the contract doesn't specifically require it. And that's because from the prime standpoint, they don't want to have to deal with who's certified, who's not certified. Third, there's a multi-year rollout, the first year being the most lax, and it goes on from there. I'm not going to get into the details. It's too complicated, but it's a 4-year time frame, and it gets more and more restrictive. But in the early years, the first couple of years, it's going to be up to the program manager to decide whether or not that particular program requires CMMC. And if it does, then they'll go put those contract clauses, that Title 48 clause I was talking about a minute ago, into the contract. And then at that point, that's the trigger. So what's the rule? How are they going to decide? Well, it's pretty vague. In the documentation, it says based on the criticality of the program, the type of acquisition it is, the threat of bad guys doing something that they don't want. I'm looking at our list here. The impact of an exploit, and then here's the kicker in all that: other relevant factors. So if you know what an other relevant factor is, you're a smarter person than I am. So what that means, though, is that for any given program, they could go off and say in year 1 or year 2, it is required, or the prime can go off and do that, or the prime is trying to line up subs, and they know that there's going to be some programs coming down the pike, and they want to go off and get ready for it. So, all of that factors in to when you need to be ready to be certified. And also remember the few certifiers, assuming this is not a self-certification, the few certifiers that are out there are backed up 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So don't think you're going to come in on a Friday and start your certification on Monday. That's not going to happen just because of the lack of certifiers. I know this is complicated. If you have questions, let me know. Please reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer them. But if you haven't started your CMMC certification process, or you haven't started in earnest, now would be a really good time to do that. Thanks for listening. and stay safe.